Got oil already. Well, hello, and welcome to my campsite on the Iron Lake Forest Service Campground in northern Minnesota, in the Superior National Forest. Tomorrow morning I'm going to be entering the boundary waters at Seagull Lake, and so I'm camping here overnight with my interagency pass or senior pass or whatever you want to call it that you're eligible for at 62. I got this campsite for $12 for tonight. Ordinarily it would be $20. So anyway, like I said, I'm going to be entering the boundary waters tomorrow at Seagull Lake and for a 2-week trip again. This year my plan is nowhere near as ambitious as last year's. I've purposely decided to leave it to I definitely limited it in scope. Hope to have a lot more time for video and photos this time around, and not so much traveling all day. Anyway, I got here to the campsite at about 5 o'clock. It's now 5:45. I have my tent all set up, and as you can see, I've got supper cooking, if you want to call it that. This thing boiled up a lot faster than I anticipated. You can probably see, maybe not, I got these big bottles this time that had twice as much as what the other bottles had, canisters, and they didn't cost twice as much. The other canisters were like $4 and change. This was 7 and change, so definitely a lot cheaper. And the quantity is double what the other ones are. So I've got 6 of these this time. With the old tanks, it was basically 6 meals per canister. So this should be 12 meals per canister, or 6 days per canister. And so 3 canisters should be 18 days, and I'm only planning on being out 14. Well, 15 if you count today. So I did add but I'll be in the boundary waters for 14 days. But I did add a couple extra meals to the requirements by staying at the Forest Service campsite tonight. So here's my campsite here at what did I say, Iron Lake. Here's my tent all set up. I kind of got it in the shade a little bit tonight. Picnic table, luxury I won't have for the next 14 days. And here's Sammy resting in the grass, nice and comfortable. Here's Iron Lake itself. It's a long, narrow lake. This is only part of it. It's almost like a river more than a lake. But Yeah, it stretches way up that way. That's kind of nice. We have this bedrock here at the top of the hill. This site is nice because it's got a nice view of the lake. However, it's kind of steep to get down from here. But there is a landing close by that once I'm done with supper, I'll look at going out for a canoe ride, as long as we don't get rain. There is supposed to be a chance for rain tonight. It looks like it's supposed to be pretty much clear up tomorrow, at least from the forecast I saw before I left home. I will yeah, check the weather radio before I go to bed tonight. Sam's found the path down to the lake. Sort of down to the lake. It's very steep, but he's down exploring the path anyway. Aren't you, Sam? Yeah. So anyway, just gonna have my supper here. Check the radio, forecast, and then yeah, see if I can get out onto the lake, get some early paddling in. So turn you off for now. Oh, by the way, dinner tonight is spaghetti. I decided to carbo load. So doing spaghetti tonight, leaving my stroganoff for tomorrow night. So anyway, what else can I say for now? Not much. Talk to you later. Before I go out paddling, while it's still light out here, I thought I'd try to show you what my plan is for these 2 weeks. So here's my map, and this is Seagull Lake. I'll be putting in up in here, coming across here, winding my way down through these islands and over to here. 105 rod portage will take me into Alpine Lake. Then I cut down here. There's a 45 rod portage here, which has a nice little waterfall along it, by the way, into Jasper Lake. And then tomorrow night I plan to stay on Jasper Lake, one of these campsites. It has 7 campsites, so hopefully one of them will be open, at least one. Okay, day 2 will be my longest day, my hardest day. I've got a 25 rod portage to get into Kingfisher Lake, then a 38 rodder to get me into the north end of Ogish-Kamunsi, or Ogish Lake. From there, things really start getting tough. I've got a 140 rod portage, which is the longest one of the trip, into Holt Lake. And by the way, this whole chain of lakes that I'm going to be going through doesn't get a lot of use, so I'm expecting these portages to be kind of rugged. There's a 55 into Nobik Lake, 65 into Nave, then 130 gets me into the south arm of Knife Lake, and then a 15 rod gets me into this one campsite lake called Toe Lake, where I'm planning to spend the second night on this campsite here. After that, things get a little bit easier. There's a 5 rod portage out of Toe, again into the south arm of Knife, 120 rod portage into Hansen Lake. From Hansen, I'm going to go north, paddle through to Esther Lake, and then stay at one of these campsites on Esther Lake, or maybe this campsite up here, not sure yet. I'm planning on taking a layover day on Esther. Okay, and then from Esther, there's an 80 rod portage into Otter Track Lake. I really hope I can get this campsite here on Otter Track. And again, I'm going to have a layover day there. So short day to get there, and then I'm going to have a layover day. After the layover day, I'm going to make my way down the rest of Otter Track. This 50 rod portage, which looks like it's almost straight uphill and straight downhill to get into this lake, Gidgee Lake, something like that, Gidgee. Then there's a 35 rod to get into Rivalry Lake, 75 Lake of the Clouds, 10 to Lunar, 45 into Cherry Lake, and then I plan to spend the night in Cherry. Next day, a 5 rodder to get into Topaz, a 20 rodder to get into Amoeba. Short day, I plan on staying on Amoeba that night. Then the next day, I come out of Amoeba into this, which is basically the north arm of Knife Lake, 75 rod portage, and a 30 rod portage into the south arm. And then I have to go to a different map. So let me get my bearings. Okay, here's Amoeba, so I'll be coming out here, paddling a little bit of the south arm of Knife, come over to this 33 rod portage here, get me into Bonnie Lake, spend the night on Bonnie, and a 25 into Spoon, 25 into Pickle, and an 80 into Kekakabik. Spend the next night on one of these campsites on Kekakabik, and then have a layover day on Kekakabik. Then I got a whole bunch of short portages through what they call the Kek Ponds to get into Eddy Lake. There's a 5, a 15, a 20, a 10, and a 15 to get into Eddy, a 15 to get into Jenny Lake, a 15 to get into Annie Lake, and then a 15 rod to get me into Ogish Kamunsi. And then I'm going to stay the night on Ogish. Okay, and now we go back to the other map again. Here's the north part of Ogish, back through Kingfisher and Jasper, and I'll either spend my last night on Alpine, or I'll move on to Seagull and spend my last night there before exiting. So I don't have a lot of layover days built into this plan, but I've got a lot of short days. And what I intend to do on the short days, spend time on the lake that I'm on in the morning, getting pictures and what have you, then packing up and getting ready to go, move on to the next lake. I'll have the evening of the next day to photograph and film that lake. Then the next morning, again, I'll have morning time. So that way, I think I'll have some good quality time on the lakes as long as the weather holds, and still be able to get some quality time on the lakes, and still get to move on to another lake for the next day. So anyway, that's the plan. As you know, I don't often stick to my plan, but I think this time I'm going to stick a little bit closer than I have in the past. I might vary by a lake or two, 1 or 2 days, but I think I'll pretty much stick to that plan. Anyway, now I'm going to just clean up a little bit after supper here, and see about getting this boat in the water and do some... Alright, we're on Iron Lake now. Wasn't sure which way to head, so I decided to head east for now. Head west when the sun's coming down a bit more. Off on the left here is the campground. Unfortunately, the bugs seem to be a little bit worse than usual this time of year. Still not as bad as what they'd be in July, so can't complain too much. We'll find out what happens after sunset, I guess. Sunrise is right around 6 o'clock this time of year. Sunset is right around 8 o'clock. A little bit after 8. And of course, sunrise is getting later and later, and sunset is getting earlier and earlier, so. Got a few new pieces of gear to talk about this trip. And I've got some old gear that I haven't talked about yet. Well, somewhat older gear that I haven't talked about. It's usually the third day of a trip before I start noticing smells. You hear the trip hasn't even officially begun. It smells so nice out here. Pines and balsams, fir trees, cedars, all mixed together. Very nice. So you might be asking yourself, after last year's trip, how come I'm doing another 2-week trip? And it's a fair question, because I thought last year was probably going to be the one and only time that I did a 2-week trip. Because I wasn't sure how it was going to go, having to carry 2 weeks of gear, food with me, all the camera gear, all the extra batteries and solar chargers and all the rest of it that I carried along last year. I really thought it was going to be a one-off thing. But I found I enjoyed it so much. I really made it work. Managed there's a beaver over there. Managed the 2 weeks worth of food just fine. found that there were a few adjustments I had to make. And the thing that the 2 weeks gave me that a week never gives is time enough to get into the interior and actually take some time to enjoy the interior, because so many times when you take a week-long trip, if it takes you 3 days to get into the interior, you basically have 1 day to enjoy it before you have to turn around and go back out again. Whereas a 2-week trip gives you plenty of time. Take 2 or 3 days to get in. You've got a good week to spend just putzing around, doing like I plan to do. Just take short hops when I do move, for the most part, and a few layover days scattered around. So it's going to allow me to get into and especially explore lakes that I've never been on before, or lakes that I've just paddled hurriedly through before without being able to take the time to really lay back and enjoy them. So I'm really liking this 2-week format. And of course last year I managed the solitude just fine for 2 weeks. I mean, out here in the Boundary Waters, it's not absolute solitude. You get a lot of free time to yourself, but you always come across other parties on the portage trails or paddling by your campsite or whatever. Yeah, it might be one other party a day sometimes, or you might even go a day or so without seeing anybody, but there's enough other people around, just enough to at least satisfy my social urges without being overbearing. And the other thing that I find, it usually takes me 3 or 4 days to really get into the rhythm of a trip, to really get to the point where I've shed the civilized world and I'm really starting to be part of the natural world, be aware of things a lot more. Like I said a while ago, the smells usually come after 3 days. Well, again, if you're on a week-long trip, 3 days, you're halfway into the trip before you're really enjoying it. Or at least in my case. Maybe other people get accustomed a lot quicker, adjusted a lot quicker, but it takes me 3 days. So you paddle in 3 days, finally get where you're feeling really comfortable with nature, and then it's time to paddle out. And of course, the further you paddle out, the more people you encounter, and the more civilized it all becomes, and less wild. I think 2 weeks though is about my limit. I really don't know how I'd manage anything longer than about 2 weeks without getting resupplied. I would definitely have to start triple portaging instead of doubles. because it just wouldn't be able to handle the extra weight and everything. But 2 weeks, like I said last year, I figured it out. Had a few adjustments I had to make for this year, which I've made. And I'll tell you about those as we're moving along. So yeah. Hopefully more 2-week trips are in my future. The only thing bad about a 2-week trip is having to leave my wife alone. Well, not completely alone. Alone with 2 other dogs for that long. The worst part of it being that we only have 1 car. So, just 2 weeks alone without wheels. I really feel bad about doing that to her. She is a great sport. She may not completely like the fact that I like coming out on these solo trips, or coming out on as many trips as I do. She understands my need for doing it. Really thankful for that. A lot of people's wives, a lot of men's wives are kind of clingy. Have a hard time even getting a couple of day trip, and let alone a couple of weeks. So I know it's rough on her. I think it's about time I turned around and headed west. And I still haven't gotten to the end of this lake. Oh, nice little lake. Nice little lake. And so I headed back to camp for a good night's sleep, optimistic about the trip ahead. Only time would tell if that optimism was warranted.